I watched my fiancé laugh at my dead mother's dress, and something inside me didn't break. It calcified into something sharp and unforgiving. The champagne glass in my hand was trembling so violently I thought it would shatter. Around me, his entire family was laughing. At me. At the ivory lace dress that still smelled faintly of my mother's perfume if you buried your face in the collar and breathed deep enough. My name is Lauren, and I'm 28 years old. 3 months ago, I thought I was living a fairy tale. Tonight, standing in the middle of my own engagement party, I realized I'd been cast as the punchline instead of the princess. Before we go any further, comment below where you're watching from. I love connecting with you all, and trust me, you're going to want to stick around for how this ends. Because what they didn't know, what he didn't know, was that I wasn't the charity case they'd all decided I was. Let me take you back 6 hours earlier. I'd been standing in front of my bedroom mirror, running my fingers over the delicate lace sleeves of my mother's wedding dress. She'd worn it in 1994, kept it pristine in a garment bag for 3 decades, whispering to me as a little girl that someday, if I wanted, it could be mine. She died 2 years ago. Breast cancer. Fast and brutal, and so unfair it still made my throat close up. The dress fit me perfectly. I'd had it professionally cleaned and pressed, the ivory fabric catching the afternoon light like liquid moonlight. It was vintage, yes, but it was also Vera Wang from her early collection, back when she was still doing custom work for private clients. My father had paid a fortune for it, but I didn't wear it because of the label. I wore it because when I slipped it on, I could almost feel her hands on my shoulders. Almost hear her voice saying, "You look beautiful, sweetheart." My father had tears in his eyes when he saw me. "She would have loved this," he whispered, kissing my forehead. I should have known then. Should have felt the warning tingle down my spine. But I was too busy being in love with a man who was about to humiliate me in front of 100 people. What happened next still makes my stomach twist. The engagement party was being held at his parents' estate in Greenwich. And when I say estate, I mean the kind of property that has a name. Ashworth Manor. 23 acres of manicured lawns, a ballroom with crystal chandeliers, and a guest list that read like a Fortune 500 directory. Trevor's mother, Diane, had insisted on planning everything. I tried to contribute, suggested a few ideas, offered to help with the catering decisions, but she'd smiled that tight, thin smile of hers and said, "Don't worry yourself, dear. You probably wouldn't understand our particular tastes anyway." I'd swallowed the insult. Told myself she was just protective of her only son. God, I was naive. Trevor had picked me up at 6. He'd barely glanced at the dress, just kissed my cheek, careful not to smudge my lipstick, and said, "Ready to show you off." Not, "You look beautiful." Not, "My mom's going to love this." Show you off. Like a new car. Like a trophy he'd won. The first hour of the party was fine. Champagne flowed. Hors d'oeuvres circulated on silver trays. I made small talk with Trevor's college friends, his work colleagues, distant cousins who examined me like I was an abstract painting they couldn't quite figure out. Then came the toasts. Trevor's father went first, giving a rehearsed speech about legacy and family values. Then Trevor's sister, Vanessa, who raised her glass and said, "To Lauren, who's taught us all that love doesn't have a price tag." Though I'm sure she wouldn't mind if it did. The guests laughed like she'd said something clever instead of cruel. Then Diane stood up. "I want to say a few words about our soon-to-be daughter-in-law," she began, her voice carrying across the ballroom with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no in her entire life. My stomach tightened, but I smiled. Trevor squeezed my hand. "Lauren is unique," Diane continued, and there was something in the way she said it. A pause too long. A smile too sharp. "She's not what we expected, of course. Trevor usually dates girls from families we know. But we've decided to embrace this refreshing change." A few uncomfortable laughs rippled through the crowd. "And I must say, Lauren, your dress is absolutely darling." Her eyes swept over me, cold and assessing. "Very vintage. Did you borrow it from a costume shop? It has that wonderful something old quality to it." More laughter. Louder this time. My face went hot. Trevor's hand slipped out of mine. It's quite resourceful, really, Diane went on, warming to her theme now. Not everyone can afford designer gowns, and there's no shame in being budget-conscious. Trevor's always had a soft spot for charity cases. The room erupted in laughter. Real laughter. The kind that strips you naked and leaves you shivering in front of strangers. I looked at Trevor, waiting for him to defend me, to shut his mother down. He was laughing too. Not uncomfortable, forced laughter. Real, genuine amusement. And the worst part? He smiled while doing it. "Come on, Mom," he said, grinning. "Don't be mean. I'm sure Lauren did her best. It's kind of charming, actually. Very thrift store chic." The champagne glass in my hand suddenly weighed 1,000 pounds. Vanessa leaned over to her mother, not bothering to lower her voice. "I bet it's polyester. Look at how it bunches at the waist. My cleaning lady has the same one. Got it at a church sale." "Definitely borrowed," someone else chimed in. "Probably from rent-a-dress or something." "Maybe it's from Goodwill," another voice suggested. "They have vintage sections now, don't they?" The laughter was a living thing, crawling over my skin like insects. I couldn't breathe. The room was too hot, too bright, too full of people who saw me as a joke. Trevor was still smiling, still laughing. That was the moment I realized they'd never respected me. Not once. My legs felt like water. My hands had gone completely numb. And then I saw my father. He was standing at the back of the room, near the French doors that led to the terrace. His face was pale. His jaw was clenched, so tight I could see the muscle jumping beneath his skin. He'd been shaking his head at me for the past 5 minutes, small, almost imperceptible movements.
"Trying to tell me something."
I'd thought he was just uncomfortable with the attention. Our eyes met across the ballroom. In that moment, I saw the decision crystallize in his expression. He'd given me the chance to walk away on my own. Now he was stepping in. He started walking toward the front of the room, and I knew, everything was about to change. "Excuse me," my father's voice cut through the laughter like a blade. "I'd like to make a toast." Diane's smile faltered. "Oh, that won't be necessary. I insist." His voice was pleasant, but there was steel underneath. The kind of steel that had built a tech company from nothing into something worth $300 million. Trevor's family didn't know that, of course. They'd never asked what my father did for a living. They'd just assumed from my modest apartment, my 5-year-old car, my state university degree instead of an Ivy League one, that I came from nothing. My father took a microphone from the confused DJ. His hand was steady. Mine were still shaking. "I want to talk about Lauren's dress," he began, and my stomach dropped. "Since it's been such a topic of conversation this evening." "Oh no. Oh God, no. Don't do this, Dad. Don't make it worse." But he wasn't backing down. "This dress," he continued, his voice carrying to every corner of the silent ballroom, "is a 1994 Vera Wang.
Custom-made.
One of only 12 pieces from her private collection that year." The laughter died like someone had flipped a switch. "I paid $45,000 for it in 1994. Adjusted for inflation, that's roughly $85,000 today." He paused, letting that sink in. "My late wife, Lauren's mother, wore it on our wedding day. She saved it for 30 years, hoping our daughter might wear it someday." You could have heard a pin drop. "She died 2 years ago," my father said quietly. "Never got to see this moment. But Lauren honored her memory by wearing the dress tonight to celebrate what she thought was a new chapter in her life." Diane's face had gone white. Trevor looked like he'd been slapped. But my father wasn't finished. "I want to address the charity case comment," he continued, and there was something dangerous in his voice now. "Because it's been bothering me all evening. See, I'm Joshua Chin. I founded Chin Technologies in 1998. We went public in 2015. Perhaps you've heard of us?" I watched recognition dawn on several faces. Chin Technologies was a household name. We manufactured semiconductor chips for everything from smartphones to medical devices. Annual revenue, north of $300 million. "Lauren works in our marketing department," my father continued. Not because of nepotism, but because she earned her position. She has an MBA from Northwestern and turned down offers from Google and Apple to join the family business. Trevor's mouth was hanging open. I'd told him I worked in marketing. He'd never asked where. Never seemed interested. 3 weeks ago, my father said, his voice still calm and measured. Right after Trevor proposed to you, I restructured our company ownership. I'd been planning it for months, but your engagement made me accelerate the timeline. I've been considering retirement, you see. Thinking about legacy. About who deserves to inherit what I've built. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my ribcage. As of last Tuesday, Lauren owns 49% of Chin Technologies. I retain 51% until my retirement, at which point she'll assume full control. The silence was deafening. That makes my daughter worth approximately $147 million, he finished. Give or take a few million depending on market fluctuations. I watched the color drain from Trevor's face. Watched his mother's expression crumble from smug superiority into something that looked like physical pain. And I still hadn't said a single word. Lauren. Trevor grabbed my arm, his voice desperate now. Baby, I didn't mean it was just a joke. You know I love you. I looked down at his hand on my wrist. Funny how quickly desperation could masquerade as affection. Let go of me, I said quietly. Please, we can talk about this.
Let
Go. He released me like I'd burned him. Diane was suddenly beside us, her face a mask of forced warmth. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Obviously, we had no idea. If you just told us about your background. I did tell you, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Trevor asked what I did. I said I worked in marketing. He never asked where. You never asked about my family. You just assumed. But surely you understand. I understand perfectly. I looked at Trevor, really looked at him. Saw the calculations happening behind his eyes. Saw him weighing his options, wondering if he could salvage this. I turned to his mother. The dress wasn't the problem, Diane. The problem was that you saw someone you thought was beneath you, and you couldn't resist making them feel small. You built an entire evening around humiliating me, made it a spectator sport. And Trevor, I continued, pulling the engagement ring off my finger, you laughed. The 3-carat diamond felt heavy in my palm. Trevor had made such a production of the proposal. Taken me to that overpriced restaurant. Had the violinist play. Got down on one knee in front of strangers who applauded. I'd thought it was romantic. Now I realized it had been performative. Something he could photograph and post. Proof that Trevor Ashworth was magnanimous enough to marry down. You can keep the ring, I said, pressing it into his hand. Sell it, return it, whatever. I don't care. Lauren, please. He was actually crying now. Real tears streaming down his perfectly symmetrical face. The wedding's off. Obviously, I continued, my voice clear and loud enough for everyone to hear. I'll have my lawyer handle returning gifts and canceling vendors. Send me an itemized list of any deposits you want reimbursed. You can't do this, Diane hissed. You're embarrassing us. I almost laughed. Almost. I'm embarrassing you? My father appeared at my elbow, solid and comforting. We should go, he said gently. But I had one more thing to say. One more knife to twist, and God help me, I wanted to twist it. Trevor, I said, turning back to him one last time. You told me you loved me because I was real. Because I wasn't like other girls you dated. Remember that? He nodded miserably. You meant I was poor, I said flatly. You meant I'd be grateful. Easy to control. You could play the hero, marrying someone from a lower class. Make yourself feel magnanimous. That's not. You introduced me to your friends as your project. I heard you. At that charity gala last month, you told Harrison I was surprisingly well-educated for someone from my background. His face confirmed it. He didn't even try to deny it. The worst part, I said, and my voice finally cracked, is that I loved you. Really loved you. I would have walked away from everything, the money, the company, all of it, if you'd actually loved me back. Silence stretched between us like a chasm. But you loved the idea of me, I finished. The grateful, inferior version you'd invented in your head. Not the real person standing in front of you. I looked around the ballroom one final time. At the shocked faces. The whispered conversations already starting. The phones being discreetly pulled out to text friends who weren't there. This would be gossip for months. Years, maybe. The Ashworth family would never live it down.
Good.
But I wasn't done. Not quite. One more thing, I said, pulling out my phone. Trevor, you know that business loan your father took out last year? The one from Meridian Capital? His eyes went wide.
Panicked.
Hale Technologies acquired Meridian Capital 3 months ago, I said pleasantly. Funny how these things work out. We're currently reviewing all outstanding loans, reassessing risk portfolios, calling in debts where appropriate. You can't, his father started, his face purpling. Oh, I'm not threatening anything, I said quickly. Just making conversation. I'm sure your financials are in perfect order. The loan committee will make their decision based purely on business metrics. Your son's behavior toward me won't factor into it at all. The lie was obvious. The threat was clear. Although, I mused, our acquisition team ran the standard due diligence when we bought Meridian. Fascinating reading. It's interesting that you've missed 2 payments in the last 6 months, and that you used your Greenwich property as collateral. Ashworth Manor, right? Diane made it sound like a wounded animal. But I'm sure it's fine, I said brightly. I'm sure you'll work something out. After all, my father's a very reasonable man. Aren't you, Dad? My father's smile was glacial. Very reasonable. Within the bounds of standard business practice, of course. Trevor looked like he might vomit. His father's hand was clutched to his chest. Vanessa had gone completely silent. All her earlier smugness evaporated. I turned to leave, my mother's dress swishing around my ankles. And then I delivered the final blow. Oh, and Trevor? That prenup your mother was so insistent I sign. He froze. I had my lawyer look at it. It was designed to protect your family's assets in case of divorce. Made sense, theoretically, except for one thing. I smiled, and it felt like showing teeth. It included a clause that any assets I acquired during the engagement would be considered marital property subject to division. Understanding dawned on his face like a slow-motion car crash. Your mother thought she was being clever. Thought she was making sure I couldn't trap you and then divorce you for money. I laughed, and it sounded brittle even to my own ears. But I didn't acquire those shares during the engagement, Trevor. I got them 3 weeks ago. And we're not married. We're not even engaged anymore. Which means, my father added helpfully, you have absolutely no claim to any portion of Chin Technologies. Not now. Not ever. But if we'd gone through with the wedding, I said softly, if I'd signed that prenup and married you, your family would have had grounds to claim a portion of my inheritance. That's what the clause was designed to do. Protect the Ashworths from me, but also position you to benefit if things went well. Diane's face was ashen. She'd thought she was protecting her family. She'd accidentally created a clause that could have made them extraordinarily wealthy. And I just walked away before they could claim a single penny. The same way I'd walked away from every lie they told about love. That was 3 months ago. I'm sitting in my new apartment now, a penthouse in Manhattan that I bought with my own money. My father suggested I upgrade. Said I'd earned the right to stop performing a smaller version of myself. The Ashworths sold the manor 6 weeks later. Trevor showed up at my office twice before security banned him. I blocked his number the same day I signed the deed to my penthouse. They moved to Connecticut. I moved on. Here's what I learned. People will always show you who they are. The trick is believing them the first time. When someone laughs at your pain, when they let others humiliate you, when they see your vulnerability as entertainment, believe them. My mother's dress is back in its garment bag, hanging in my closet. I'll never wear it again. That moment is tainted now, and I've made peace with that. But sometimes, when I'm having a hard day, I open the closet and just look at it. Remember my mother's hands smoothing down the fabric. Her voice telling me I was beautiful. She was right, you know. I am beautiful. I'm also smart, successful, and worth $147 million. But more importantly, I'm worth more than someone who would laugh at my dead mother's dress. And that's the kind of worth that no trust fund, no estate, and no last name can ever buy. If you made it this far, drop a comment about the worst wedding or engagement disaster you've ever witnessed. And don't forget to subscribe. I've got more stories where this came from, and trust me, they only get messier.